How's it going, you guys? I want to make a video really quick discussing the idea of normal versus abnormal in our moods, in our mental health, and in our society. So at a baseline, pretty much the idea of normal does not exist. The idea of normal is simply a subjective judgment based on what we feel is familiar and what we feel should be the standard in behavior and cognition and societal norms. In general, there's no objective, tangible application of the word normal or abnormal, especially in regards to behavior, society, and mental health. Now, there is, of course, a practicality and application in deeming certain behaviors and moods and things like that as negative or beneficial to yourself and beneficial to society, or harmful to yourself and harmful to society. And I think that is more important than deeming normal. So, there's a lot of people out there who believe that they're weird or believe that they're, strange or abnormal, and they believe that they can't gain friendships because they're abnormal or they're weird. Or they can't get the kind of girlfriend that they want because they feel weird, or that, they just have trouble getting friendships because they're weird or they're abnormal. And the fact is, that idea of weird is completely their own judgment. And generally speaking, people who feel weird, they feel that way because they have not had the same kind of validation over the course of their life that they believe a normal person would get. Like, they didn't have a group of friends that made them feel like they belonged. Instead, they probably had maybe some parental influences that made them feel like there was something wrong with them, and that they were, lesser than the rest of society, or something to that extent. But this idea of weird is completely a subjective judgment that they place on themselves, and it doesn't actually exist in reality. And the fact of the matter is, there's an abundance of examples of people who were so-called weird that got more validation than any so-called normal person. Marilyn Manson, Johnny Depp. I could really get deep into this and think about, think real deeply about it and come up with a whole list of examples. But the point is, number one, there is actually no such thing as weird. So, there's no such thing as normal. You have different types of people with unique individualities. And in general, I think pretty much everybody has feelings that they're weird to some extent. But I think that if you have a lot of social support and you've gotten a lot of validation in your life, if you're someone with a really high social status like Donald Trump or any presidential candidate or something like that, or The Rock, or a rock star or something, obviously, even some of them feel weird, so-called, but if you do have high social status, you're probably going to feel a lot less of that, or care less, because this idea of weird in a social sense has a lot more to do with who are you versus who is the rest of society that you deem normal. So it's a contrasting idea, and it's not real. And it's entirely just a judgment based on what you've experienced over your life and how other people make you feel and how you see the rest of the world. Obviously, what's normal in America and in United States is not necessarily normal in South America, like in Brazil. Or what's normal in China is not going to be normal in Russia. And then different parts of each country, different states, have different cultural norms, and then different cities within those states have different cultural norms. And this should be obvious, but I think most people just don't really understand the significance of this, and their self-esteem will suffer because of this limiting belief that they have, that there's some kind of normal that applies to everyone, when in reality it's what you create. You know, and the other thing is, if you rock your weirdness, your so-called weirdness, which doesn't exist, if you rock your weirdness, if you rock your unique style well enough, then other people will see that, and it'll inspire other people to kind of follow your trend in a way. And that's how trends develop, is something's weird, something outside of the normal, like trip pants, like those giant pants people wore in the 90s. People make it cool, and then next thing you know, something that used to be really, really weird becomes super cool. I mean, look at video games, for example. For a long time, those were deemed as super nerdy, and now every single so-called cool person plays them, and you're looked at as weird if you don't play video games. But the bottom line is, if you don't play the normal versus weird game, then you're not going to be affected by it. So there's other instances of this normal versus weird thing. Things like even feeling happy. Happiness is very subjective to the person experiencing it. And so one person can have, so how you, like emotions that you feel and you describe with words as happiness or sadness, they feel different for you than other people, or at least they might. The thing is, you can only know how different feelings feel in regards to, in relation, or in your own experience, in your own perception. Like the way we, like our sensory feelings, no one else can feel how we feel. So I might say I'm happy, and someone else might say I'm happy too. But the feelings you're actually feeling in your own body could be completely different, despite the fact that you both think they're the same thing. And you'll never know how that other person is feeling, because it's impossible to perceive the world and their feelings through their eyes. So that's a very interesting perspective. And it's one that I believe comes with what I would call enlightenment. And unfortunately, I think like it's very rare for people to be able to contemplate even what this means. And I think when you understand this, it makes life, I guess, less stressful, because there's things and aspects of society and whatnot that you cannot change. Like ignorance, for example, or what I perceive as ignorance in society. You know, people who have a belief that's founded on emotion rather than reason, and they're so emotional about their belief that they can't change it. They can't even discuss it with you, even if it's your own mother, unfortunately. And the thing is, if you arrive at the perspective that I'm coming from right now, and you recognize this idea of subjective perception is all that there really is, then number one, it can make you feel like, wow, like how the fuck is society ever going to improve? How is all these big problems like, you know, racism and what else, climate change or whatever you believe about that, you know, and things like veganism versus, you know, meat eating. How are we ever going to improve these things as a society if we can't really see objective truth, but we can only see perception? You know, anyway, these are all facets of the same thing, of this, there's no true thing is normal, and in fact, you could argue that we can never actually find truth. Even amongst, like, I mean, there's so many examples of this. But in this video, I really just want to say, like, even feelings of happiness. There's no, and also, there's no such thing as a normal feeling, you know? But I can tell you, obviously, that you could probably improve how you feel if you do certain things that we know are proven to work. But everybody who's eating junk food, right? People who eat junk food, they're experiencing what they think is normal. And they don't understand if they were to just completely drop carbs and go keto, for example, and they do it properly, they can completely change their subjective experience of life and how they feel and the way they perceive things simply by dropping carbs. And the same thing can be said about going on a super high, low fat, super high carb diet, like a vegan diet. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, when I was vegan for a year, the way I felt in my body and the way I perceived the world was completely different to how I see things now and how I feel in my body. But the thing is, I never would have known that if I never would have tried it. And how I felt and how I saw things when I was vegan was not normal. It was just a change. And how I see things and I feel things now is definitely different from when I was vegan, but it's not normal. It's changed. And so this idea of normal in regards to how I feel, normal doesn't matter. Normal means nothing. What matters is, do I want to feel this way? Not, is it normal? Okay? And things like mental health, right? Like mental pathologies, mental illness. Let's say there's a 50-year-old guy who plays with stuffed animals when he's 50. Is that hurting anyone? No. Is it hurting himself? No. I mean, maybe it could. Does it matter if a 50-year-old still plays with stuffed animals he's had since he was a kid? Maybe not. Maybe you'd want to, as a talk therapist, you'd want to explore, why is this guy doing that, right? Like, is there, maybe there is some kind of trauma, right? But what really matters is, does he have healthy relationships? Does he have healthy friendships, which are relationships? Does he have a healthy career? Can he sustain his lifestyle? Is he perceiving his life as happy? Things like that. Is he hurting anyone? Is he hurting himself? Is he, the objective behavior of playing with stuffed animals as a 50-year-old person, it looks abnormal, because generally somebody who does that into their, when they're children, it looks as normal, because stuffed animals are made for children. Then when you get into your teen years, your dad is going to be telling you, hey man, grow up, and you're told that girls are gonna think you're weird or hate you or something because you have stuffed animals and stuff. And it doesn't make any sense. Literally, the reason why most people stop playing with stuffed animals is either because they lose interest or because they believe it's weird. And because they believe it's weird, they stop it. But there is no realistic, tangible reason in reality, objective reason, for why they stopped playing with it, other than they thought it was weird because the rest of society doesn't do it. And that's that. Otherwise, if you never are bothered by what's normal, and you realize that there's no such thing as normal anyway, you play with your stuffed animals till you're 50, you could literally grow up the same way as everyone else, but just play with stuffed animals, and there's zero negative consequences of it. And so this is, the reason why I bring this example up is because it's a meaningless act that has no real effect on anything meaningful. But it's just weird. It looks weird, right? And I think that this is a really big flaw in most human beings in modern society, is that we care too much about what's weird or what's normal and we fail to realize there's no such thing, and it makes no sense to give a shit. The only thing that really matters though is like, I mean, obviously if you bring stuffed animals as a 50-year-old into like a grocery store, like there's going to be consequences for certain actions. Now that is something you need to care about, obviously. So, you know, caring about actual behaviors and impactful things, you know, that's important. But like what you wear every day, if I wear, you know, purple pants, you know, sure, I'm going to get judged for it, you know, but that's my choice to wear purple pants, and it's other people's choice to judge me. And if I choose to do that, I've got to understand what the consequences are. But at a baseline, if I have no clothes, right, if I have absolutely zero clothes to wear, and purple pants are the only thing I have, you know, and I have a very important, like, I don't know, grocery store visit to go to, then screw it, I'm gonna wear the purple pants. And if I allow other people's judgments of me, like, oh, you're weird or you're gay or something, to hurt me, that's my own fragility. And I think people need to overcome that. And I think that we should place less emphasis on, we should work on controlling ourselves. Don't try to control other people's ideas of whether you're weird or not. That is just going to hurt you. But instead, strive to not aim for normal. Strive to aim for, you know, desirable, like what you desire. I don't want to feel normal. I want to feel good. I don't want to behave normally. I want to behave, you know, in a way that produces good results and makes me and other people feel good, right? I don't want to be normal. And I don't want to be abnormal. I don't really care about normal or abnormal. I care about what produces results in society, what produces results in my life, what makes me feel good, what makes other people feel good, and what produces success, like the outcomes that I want. You know, this idea of normal and abnormal, it doesn't matter, okay? Now, of course, if you act, you know, over the top in public and in society, that will create negative consequences depending on the circumstance. So you don't want that. But, so understand though that there's no such thing as normal, but also understand that if you act out of place in society, that you will be judged for it. So hopefully that this all makes sense. I don't know how significant people think this is, but this is a pretty big game changer as far as, you know, like, I think this is a very first step in kind of like becoming immune to a lot of issues people have in society and in life. Leave your question, comments down below, and I'll talk to y'all next time.